They hid the true purpose of my birth for 26 years. I refused to be their victim. But do I have the right to live at the cost of my brother's life? The phone call came at 3:14 a.m. I memorized those numbers on the clock because that was the exact moment my illusion of a normal life finally collapsed. It was Blythe, my mother. She never called just to see how her youngest son was doing. Every call was a demand disguised as a request. I hadn't seen my parents or my older brother Julian in 6 months. Not since that awkward Christmas when Dad forgot to get me a gift but handed Julian the keys to a new car. I picked up, feeling a sticky dread tighten my stomach. Her voice was hysterical but simultaneously cold as ice. Julian is worse. His kidneys are failing. You need to be at St. Jude's by 8 a.m. We're starting the tests. No hello, no how are you, just an order. I tried to ask what happened, since Julian was always sickly but stable. She cut me off. Ewan, stop being selfish. Your brother is dying. You're the only hope. You know you're a match. How could she possibly know that for sure? I drove to the hospital, not out of love, but out of the guilt they'd instilled in me since I was in diapers. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. My father, Orson, was pacing back and forth. He didn't even look at me when I walked in, just nodded at the chair next to him, like I was a hired hand. The doctor will be out soon, he grunted. You'll sign the compatibility papers, and we'll fast-track everything. I sat down, feeling invisible. It was the same in childhood. If Julian needed blood, they drove me to the clinic. If he needed bone marrow, they prepped me for the procedure. I was 7 then, and I thought it was a superhero game. I was saving my brother. But now I'm 26. I'm an architect. I have my own life, my own plans, my own fiancé who begged me not to come. They're using you again, Ewan, she said. I brushed it off. But sitting there under the flickering fluorescent light, I started to realize. To them, I'm not a son. I'm just a set of spare parts, walking and breathing until needed in inventory. The doctor came out, a tired man with gray skin. He looked at me with a strange kind of pity that put me on edge. Mr. Carter, he addressed me. Before we begin the screening, I'm required to have a confidential discussion with you, without your parents. Blythe jumped up immediately. We have no secrets. We are one family. He has nothing to hide. Her face twisted into a grimace I rarely saw, a mix of fear and rage. She clawed at my arm. Her nails dug into my skin through my sweater sleeve. Ewan will do whatever is necessary, right, honey? That tone, sweet, cloying, nauseating. That's how she spoke when I was 10 and facing a painful puncture for Julian. I gently removed her hand. The doctor's gaze was insistent. It is protocol. Ma'am, please remain here. I followed him down the long corridor, and with every step, the weight in my chest grew. I felt that behind the closed office doors, I wasn't just facing a medical questionnaire, but something that would flip my reality upside down. The office was quiet. The doctor pointed to a folder lying on the desk. It had Julian's name on it, but the date was strange. A year before I was born. Ewan, do you know what a savior sibling is? He asked bluntly. I shook my head, feeling my mouth go dry. The doctor sighed and opened the file. Your brother was born with a rare genetic kidney disease. Chances for a long life were minimal, without constant supportive therapy and transplants. Your parents underwent IVF. They created 12 embryos. He paused, letting me process what I was hearing. They performed genetic screening, not to rule out diseases, but to find the perfect donor. Out of 12, only you were a match. You weren't chosen because they wanted a second child. You were chosen because your antigens are a 100% match for Julian. The world swam before my eyes. I wasn't an accident. I wasn't a desired son. I was a medical project. A carefully selected container of biological material. Is this legal? My voice trembled. The doctor nodded. In our country, yes, with ethical caveats. But the problem is elsewhere. Your medical records from childhood, they are disturbing. Frequent blood draws, bone marrow at 7. A partial liver transplant at 15. Do you remember that? I remembered. They told me I had appendicitis, that I had bad blood that needed cleaning. Lies. All this time, they were cutting me open to patch him up. I jumped up from the chair, feeling nauseous. My whole life, every illness I had was a lie. I was healthy. I had always been healthy. They just used me as an organ farm. Now Julian needs a kidney, the doctor said quietly. You are the only compatible donor in the database. But the decision is yours. You are an adult. No one can force you. I looked at my hands. The same hands that designed buildings, that held my fiancé. They wanted to take a part of me away. Not because they loved me, but because that's what I was created for. I walked out of the office, stumbling. Blythe and Orson rushed toward me. Well, when is the surgery? Can we schedule it for Tuesday? Dad wasn't even looking me in the eye. He was looking at his planner. I stopped and looked at them properly for the first time. I didn't see parents. I saw investors checking their assets. You knew, I said. It wasn't a question. Blythe froze. Her face instantly lost its expression of fake concern. Did the doctor tell you? That's a breach of doctor-patient confidentiality, she shrieked. It's my secret. It's my body, I yelled, and people in the hallway turned around. We gave you life, Dad barked, stepping closer. He used his height to intimidate me, just like he did when I was a kid. We spent a fortune on IVF, so you could be born. You should be grateful. If not for Julian's illness, you wouldn't exist at all. You are a byproduct that got a chance to live. So pay your debts. Byproduct. Those words echoed in my head. I looked at the man I called Dad and realized he wasn't joking. For him, this was a business transaction. I received life. In return, I had to give myself away piece by piece. I turned around and walked toward the exit. Stop. Where are you going? Mom screamed. She ran after me, grabbing my jacket. You can't leave. Julian is waiting. He's your brother. I shook her hand off with such disgust, as if it were a venomous spider. I don't have a brother, I said quietly, but in a way that made her recoil. I have a parasite you've been feeding with my body for 26 years. I walked out to the parking lot, got in my car, and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't put the key in the ignition. I cried. Not stoic manly tears, but sobbing, howling from the pain of betrayal. The closest people on earth had dehumanized me before I was even born. I didn't go home. I drove to a hotel on the other side of town and turned off my phone. I needed to think. But an hour later, there was a knock on the door. It was Julian, of course. My parents gave him my location. They probably had access to my GPS through the family plan I forgot to cancel. Julian looked bad, pale, with dark circles under his eyes, but there was no pleading in his gaze. There was expectation. Mom said you caused a scene, he said instead of a greeting. He walked into the room uninvited and sat on the bed. Ewan, let's skip the drama. I need a kidney. You have two. It's simple math. I looked at him, trying to find even a drop of brotherly love. Did you know? I asked. Julian shrugged. Of course I knew, since I was 12. Why do you think I got away with everything while you got rode hard? I was being preserved. And you were being prepped. Look, it's not my fault I was born sick. But you were born to help me. It's your purpose. Purpose. That word was the final straw. If he had cried, if he had asked, if he had said he was scared of dying, I might have caved. I was always soft. But this cynicism, this certainty that my body belonged to him by birthright, killed everything inside me. No, I said firmly. Julian scoffed. No what? Don't start negotiating. How much do you want? Dad will pay. I said no, I will not give you a kidney, ever, not for any money. Julian's face changed. The mask of the bored prince fell away, revealing a vicious child. You don't have the right. You'll kill me. If you don't do this, you're a murderer. He jumped up and shoved me. I didn't hit back. I just opened the door. Get out. Find a donor on the list. Get in line like regular people. My warehouse is closed. The next 3 days turned into hell. My phone blew up with messages. Relatives I saw once every 5 years texted me curses. Aunt Sarah wrote, "How can you eat and sleep knowing your brother is fading? God will punish you." My parents launched a social media campaign, not naming me directly, but hinting at a heartless relative who abandoned the family in need. My fiancée Lisa was horrified. They found her number and called her work, demanding she talk sense into me. It was a siege. I felt like a criminal barricaded in a fortress. But the worst part was happening inside me. The voice of guilt. cultivated by years of manipulation, whispered, "What if they're right? What if I really am a monster? It costs me nothing, and he will die." But then I remembered Dad's words about the byproduct, and realized, if I give the kidney, I won't lose an organ. I'll lose my soul. I will remain a thing forever. The climax came on Thursday. I arrived at work, at the architecture firm, and saw my father in the lobby. He was talking to my boss. Orson was an influential man in town. His company supplied building materials. I saw my boss nodding, looking uncomfortable. I walked up to them. "Ewan, your father says you have a family crisis and you need unpaid leave," my boss said, avoiding eye contact. "Maybe you should sort this out?" Dad smiled his shark smile. "We just want to take our son home. He needs medical help. He's having a nervous breakdown." He was trying to paint me as crazy. He wanted to strip me of my job, my stability, so I'd have no choice but to return to their control. It was a war of annihilation. I looked at my boss and said, "If you fire me, I will sue for discrimination. My crisis is that these people are trying to harvest an organ from me against my will." Silence fell over the lobby. Dad turned purple. "You're embarrassing us," he hissed. "No, Orson," I called him by his name for the first time. "You embarrassed yourselves 26 years ago." I called security. Watching my father, a respected businessman, being escorted out of the office by two burly guys was painful, but necessary. That evening, I filed a police report for harassment. I changed the locks on my apartment, even though I was staying with Lisa. I hired a lawyer. I decided to completely cut out the cancer that was my family. But Blythe didn't give up. She came to Lisa's house that evening. She stood in the rain, without an umbrella, screaming at the windows. "Please, I love you, forgive me, save him." It was a performance. I knew this because I saw her checking her phone between screams, making sure the neighbors were watching. But a part of me, the little boy who wanted mommy's love, yearned to go to the window. Lisa held me back. "It's not love, Ewan, it's a trap." A month passed. Julian was put on dialysis. He is alive, but his life has changed. No parties, no alcohol, a strict diet. My parents tried to sue me for emotional distress, but no lawyer would touch the case after learning the details of my conception and medical history. We met in court regarding the restraining order. Blythe looked like she had aged 10 years. When the judge ruled in my favor, forbidding them from coming within 100 yards of me, she cried. For real this time. She realized she had lost not only a spare part, but a son. I walked past them toward the exit. Julian was sitting in a wheelchair. He looked at me with hatred. "You'll die alone anyway," he whispered. I stopped, leaned in, and said, "Better to be alone than to be a cannibal." I walked out of the courthouse and inhaled the air. It was cold and crisp. For the first time in 26 years, I felt that my body belonged only to me. My kidneys, my liver, my blood, my hands. All of it is mine. I don't know if Julian will survive. Maybe they'll find a donor. Maybe not. But I am no longer responsible for his fate. I paid a high price for this freedom. I became an orphan with living parents. But when I saw Lisa waiting for me by the car, I realized I have a family. A real family that starts not with DNA and medical charts, but with love and respect. I got in the car and we drove away. I didn't look back. The rearview mirror was empty, and it was the most beautiful view of my life. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel, like it, and click on the bell so you don't miss any more stories. See you soon.